Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Monday the 27th of December and this is Scotland at 7. I'm Andrew Wilson and today I'm hosting the programme from Edinburgh, and I hope that you've had a peaceful Christmas if you celebrate it. First of all, we will have today's coronavirus update, and then I will give you today's news headlines from Scotland and around the world. No data is being published by the Scottish Government over the holiday period between the 25th and the 28th of December. However, the Government has released provisional figures and a statement by the First Minister today. Provisional data indicates an increasing number of COVID-19 cases. The figures for the 25th, 26th and 27th December are the highest daily totals recorded in Scotland since the start of the pandemic. While the figures for each day cover tests reported in the preceding 24-hour period, the lag in reporting means that the majority of these cases will relate to tests done before the Christmas break. With the longer turnaround time for test results at the moment, the actual number of positive COVID-19 cases may well be higher still. The provisional figures are, for the 25th of December, 8,252 cases, for the 26th of December, 11,030 cases, and for the 27th of December, 10,562 cases. The First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said, "While these figures are provisional, the steep increase in cases we have been expecting is now materialising, and this reflects the significantly increased transmissibility of Omicron. We would expect to see case numbers rise further in the days ahead, though it is worth bearing in mind that they are likely to have been even higher but for the compliance of the public with the guidance issued in the run-up to Christmas." These figures underline how important it is that we don't underestimate the impact of Omicron. Even if the rate of hospitalisation associated with it is much lower than past strains of the virus, case numbers this high will still put an inevitable strain on the NHS. This level of infection will also cause a significant and severely disruptive level of sickness absence across the economy and critical services. She continued, "So even though we are all thoroughly fed up with the impact of COVID on our lives, it is really important that over the New Year period, we follow the guidance to help slow the spread of the virus while we complete the accelerated booster programs." She went on, "In addition to observing good hand hygiene and wearing face coverings, I am asking everyone to limit contacts as much as possible, to keep any essential indoor gatherings to a maximum of 3 households, and to get boosted by the bells." She went on, "I know sticking to all of these measures is really hard, especially at this time of year, but there's no doubt whatsoever it will help keep us safer." Now, the latest UK daily figures only report data from England, which shows that 148,003 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness, and that is an increase of 143. Remember, this number refers to deaths in all settings, not just in hospitals. And with just 5 days left to get boosted by the bells, all remaining over 18s are being urged to come along for their COVID-19 booster. Latest published figures show that 73.5% of eligible adults aged 18 and above in Scotland have now received their booster or third dose, giving them the best possible protection against coronavirus. The Health Secretary Humza Yousaf visited the vaccination centre at the Dewars Centre in Perth today to thank the staff for their ongoing efforts over the Christmas period and to encourage people to keep coming forward. Mr Yousaf said, "Since the emergence of the Omicron variant, there has been a monumental effort by everyone on Scotland's vaccination programme to make sure we can deliver booster vaccines as quickly as possible. That's because it is the single best way to protect people's health and the NHS. This week we are calling on everyone in the country to rally round and do their bit by coming forward for their booster dose." And temporary measures to limit the spread of the Omicron variant whilst the accelerated booster vaccination programme takes effect have come into force. From 5 a.m. yesterday, Boxing Day, attendance at large events has been limited to 100 people for indoor standing events, 200 people for indoor seated events, and 500 people for all outdoor events, seated or standing. Taking effect from 5 o'clock this morning, 1 metre physical distancing has been reinstated in all hospitality and indoor leisure settings, including pubs, restaurants, gyms, theatres and museums, amongst others. Table service is also required in settings where alcohol is served for consumption on the premises. Nightclubs are also to close for a period of at least 3 weeks from today. However, they will have the option of remaining open if they operate with table service and physical distancing in line with the requirements for other hospitality businesses. All of the temporary measures are due to be reviewed after 3 weeks on Tuesday the 11th of January. The restrictions are backed by £370 million in business support, with full details to be announced shortly, following discussions with business organisations and local authorities. Hospitality businesses are already eligible for top-up funding through the December and January business top-ups. Further guidance has also been published to support businesses to take reasonable measures to limit the rapid spread of the Omicron variant. The Economy Secretary Kate Forbes said, "These temporary restrictions are targeted at reducing the spread of Omicron while the accelerated vaccination programme takes effect. I understand how difficult this has been for businesses in recent weeks, but we must reduce our contacts and limit the spread of the virus. We're providing £375 million in business support, which is a significant investment, to support those who have experienced cancellations and help them get back on their feet in the new year. The best way to support business sustainably is to get the virus back under control. Please get your boosters and stay at home as much as possible just now." England will have no further COVID restrictions over New Year's Eve, Boris Johnson has ruled, meaning nightclubs and mass events can continue, but people will be urged to test before seeing those who are vulnerable. After a virtual briefing with England's Chief Medical Officer Professor Chris Whitty and the government's Chief Scientific Advisor Sir Patrick Vallance, Number 10 said the data would continue to be reviewed, but that no new steps would be taken before the new year. The decision makes England an outlier in the UK after Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland put limits on social gatherings and mass events. Instead, Johnson and the Health Secretary Sajid Javid will put an emphasis on personal responsibility, despite warnings from health bosses and trade unions stressing the needs to wear masks indoors, keep areas ventilated, and to take tests before seeing elderly or vulnerable relations. New coronavirus restrictions come into force from Monday in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. From Boxing Day, Wales has restricted to a maximum of 6 the number of people allowed to meet in pubs, cinemas and restaurants, as well as other restrictions on numbers for larger events, and nightclubs have been closed. Northern Ireland is also recommending restricting socialising to 3 households, while up to 6 people can meet in pubs, bars and restaurants. Nightclubs have also been closed in Northern Ireland. Rising energy prices will hand Rishi Sunak a windfall of £3.1 billion since October's budget, according to budget data analysis, with campaigners and opposition politicians demanding that the Chancellor should spend it on cutting household energy bills. The analysis suggests the receipts would cover the projected £2.4 billion cost of removing VAT from gas and electricity bills over the winter months. The figures come from House of Commons library research commissioned by Labour, which projects £3.1 billion extra in VAT receipts in 2021-22, making a total of £135 billion. The figures were reached using the Office for Budget Responsibility's projections that 42.2% of VAT receipts will come from November to March. This suggests that with £78 billion raised to October 21, a little under £57 billion may be expected over the rest of the year. This would bring total VAT receipts to about £135 billion. At the budget in October, the OBR forecast £131.9 billion for 2021-22. The Treasury has said those increases would not come close to meeting the pre-pandemic forecasts. A government spokesperson said there has been no VAT windfall. VAT for this year are forecast to be below the pre-COVID level, with the OBR forecasting nearly £2 billion less will be received this year compared with directly before the pandemic. Energy bosses, meanwhile, are dialing up the pressure on ministers to shield consumers from soaring gas and electricity bills, with calls on the government to set up a multi-billion-pound scheme to help spread the cost to households over a number of years. Amid warnings that energy bills could rise by 50% next year, triggering a national crisis, suppliers such as EDF have called on the Treasury to follow other European countries by cutting VAT and green levies to bring down bills. One other idea gaining traction within the industry, including at the trade body Energy UK, involves a government-administered scheme to smooth the impact across multiple years, so that consumers aren't hit all at once. Under the plan sketched out by energy suppliers, one or more commercial lenders, such as banks, would cover the immediate cost that they are incurring to buy energy on wholesale markets at record prices, with a sum of at least £7 billion required. The loans would not require a government guarantee, but officials would be responsible for ensuring repayments. Fans of the plan believe this could avert the need to pass on the huge increase in gas prices with an immediate hike in the energy price cap that limits what suppliers can charge bill payers. The cap is forecast to rise from £1,277 to nearly £2,000 in April 2022 without this intervention. With lenders shouldering the upfront cost of wholesale energy prices, suppliers would then be able to stagger tariff increases across multiple years, repaying the lenders through an industry-wide scheme overseen by the government. Ministers and officials are understood to be considering the proposal. Since the 1st of October this year, the cap set by the industry regulator Ofgem has been set at a record £1,277. It is due to change on the 1st of April 2022, when Ofgem is expected to raise it significantly, prompting predictions that the cap will hit £2,000 in 2022. The energy industry is warning that bills could be closer to £3,000 if energy suppliers were able to pass on the full cost of gas prices, but the price cap which is currently limiting the impact on households is seen as a dam that will burst under the sustained pressure of rising gas prices. South Africans remembered the anti-apartheid hero Archbishop Desmond Tutu with cathedral bells, flowers and warm words today, the day after he died in a Cape Town nursing home, aged 90. Archbishop Tutu, a Nobel laureate who had preached against the tyranny of the white minority, was revered by black and white South Africans alike as the nation's moral conscience. His passing prompted an outpouring of tributes worldwide, including from US President Joe Biden and his predecessors Barack Obama and Jimmy Carter. Pope Francis and the foundation of Nelson Mandela, South Africa's first black president and friend of Tutu. The bells of St George's Cathedral tolled for 10 minutes at noon, an homage set to be repeated every day until Friday. Archbishop Tutu led numerous campaigns and marches against apartheid from St George's Steps. The current Archbishop of Cape Town, Thabo Mgoba, asked all who heard the bells to pause their busy schedules for a moment in tribute to Desmond Tutu. Mourners laid flowers outside what was known as the People's Cathedral, and a powerful symbol of democracy. Black and white portraits of Desmond Tutu were attached to a fence, and 5 books of condolence were available for mourners who braved wet weather. The South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, said in a national address late on Sunday that flags would be flown at half-mast nationwide and at South African diplomatic missions abroad until Archbishop Tutu's funeral, which is set for Saturday. Cape Town City Hall and the Table Mountain, which rises above the city, will be illuminated every night this week in purple, the colour of Tutu's clerical robes. Archbishop Tutu won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984 in recognition of his non-violent opposition to white minority rule. A decade later, he witnessed the end of that regime and chaired a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to unearth the atrocities committed under it. He later called the black political elite to account with just as much feistiness as he had the Afrikaners, but his enduring spirit of reconciliation always shone through, and he never stopped fighting for a rainbow nation. A memorial service is planned in Pretoria, South Africa's capital, on Wednesday. That same evening, Cape Town will host a special tribute at its City Hall, attended by members of Desmond Tutu's family, his foundation, and various faiths and tribes. On Friday, Archbishop Tutu will lie in state at St George's ahead of Saturday's funeral service, which will be led by the Archbishop of Cape Town. Archbishop Tutu's ashes will be interred in an ossuary behind the pulpit in accordance with his wishes. An Afghan former BBC journalist who managed to flee the Taliban has been stranded in a refugee camp for months because of delays to a resettlement scheme promised by the UK government. Mudassir Kadir is only one of 14 former BBC employees to have escaped Afghanistan since the Taliban took over in August. The other 13 remain in hiding in fear for their lives. Mr. Kadir, who also spent time working for the World Bank and the former Afghan government, had hoped that he and his family could begin a new life after leaving Afghanistan. But since escaping in early October with the help of a US charity, Mr. Kadir and his wife and 2 young sons have been stuck in a refugee centre on the outskirts of Dubai. The Kadirs are grateful to the United Arab Emirates for the safe haven and are being well looked after, but they are prevented from straying more than 100 metres from the building, and the UAE will not accept asylum applications. Mr. Kadir is exasperated by the UK government's repeated refusals in response to his request for help, and he still lives in fear of being sent back to Afghanistan, where his work for the BBC has made him a target for the Taliban. Campaigners say the family's predicament highlights the plight of thousands of Afghan immigrants caught in limbo, unable to return home for fear of persecution, and prevented from travelling anywhere willing to grant them refugee status. The UK government has promised an Afghan citizens resettlement scheme to help as many as 5,000 people a year starting in January, alongside the existing restrictive Afghanistan relocation and assistance policy. Mr. Kadir does not qualify for this relocation and assistance policy, which has helped fewer than 400 people so far, and he is unable to apply for the new scheme because it is yet to open, and when it does will only accept referrals for resettlement from NGOs. Campaigners fear the UK government is deliberately delaying the implementation of the scheme in an effort to reduce the numbers. The National Union of Journalists has been lobbying the government to help secure visas for all Afghan former BBC staff, including one who survived an armed attack on a relative's home in October. A spokesperson for the BBC said, "We have every sympathy with former staff, but we regret we are not in a position to extend our direct support to them." Businesses across Scotland have been supported by more than £4.6 billion of business support to help them get through the pandemic. Research from the Scottish Parliament Information Centre shows that the Scottish Government has provided businesses with £2.884 billion worth of grants since the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020. On top of these grants, businesses also benefited from £1.576 billion of business rates relief, with businesses in Scotland receiving 100% rates relief until March 2022, and that's a much more generous scheme than the partial relief offered by the UK government to businesses in England and Wales. On the 17th of December, the Scottish Government announced a further £100 million of support package for businesses to compensate for festive cancellations as a result of the rapid spread of the Omicron variant. Commenting, the SNP MSP and Deputy Convener of the Economy and Fair Work Committee, Colin Beattie MSP, said, "Scottish Government support throughout the pandemic has been a vital lifeline for thousands of businesses across the country. It has enabled many to stay afloat while they were closed and ensure that they did not have to let any staff go." And that was our final item this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. If you would like to support us, and we really need you to support us, then please consider subscribing or donating to Broadcasting Scotland. You will find the link to do that on the screen now. And that funding will of course assist us in recruiting and paying permanent staff. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. Meantime, we will be here at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening for the next edition of Scotland at 7, so please tune in then. And thanks to you all for joining us on Broadcasting Scotland this evening. I'm away for some turkey curry, but meantime, I hope that you keep warm and keep well. Bye-bye.
What distinguishes Broadcasting Scotland from a website or blog, apart from our brilliant programmes?
Hi there, I'm Gordon Ross.
Are the costs we face to enable us to produce those programmes. These costs are significant and ongoing. However, our facilities are able to do so much more if only we had the staff. In the last year, some of our supporters have cancelled their subscriptions. In one way, we would prefer it if it was because they didn't like us, rather than it being because of the financial pressures which we are all under because of COVID. The really positive outcome of our fundraiser is that at a time of economic challenge in Scotland, we will use your donations to create jobs and in a small way contribute to improving the Scottish economy. If you want us to be Scotland's independent broadcaster, able to provide an alternative mainstream television platform, then please support us.
Scotland is going to be an independent country.
Just imagine what we could do if we had even 1% of the BBC Scotland channel's budget. Imagine. And then please consider turning your imagination into reality. Please support us if you can afford it.